Spooking stocks, Wall Street poised to open sharply lower as that September slide intensifies.
And one reason, of course, is China's Evergrande. Those shares are also plunging again. It's a Chinese property giant, and its debts, well, they top $300 billion, and it does risk defaulting on a payment deadline this week.
And Pfizer says its COVID vaccine is safe and generates robust immune response in kids ages 5 to 11. Jim, we'll start off, even though we're keeping it creative on the seating arrangements today, with this sell-off, which you have been eyeing for several weeks now.
Yeah, look, I was saying that the sell-off's going to begin last week. It's going to continue for a couple weeks. And that I was kind of using a Tolstoyan analysis, which is that all bull markets are happy, but each bear market is unhappy in its own way. I mean, this one we suddenly decided that this project, this problem, this $300 billion debt is an issue. It has been an issue for months, but we always felt that the PRC, the government, would bail them out. And, David, what this seems to be is a recognition that when the nation's richest man, which is the person who owned Evergrande, is in trouble, we no longer expect the Chinese Communist government to bail them out.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of what has been happening there in the last, I don't know what you call it, 6 months to a year, over a year now,
yes,
actually.
That's why it's a slow-motion train wreck, but it's been going.
Because it's not as though we haven't talked about an overheated property market in China for many years. And, I mean, there have been so many times that we have perhaps set up, this default or could be the key one, or this could really undermine the entire financial system. I mean, it's not hyperbole. You've heard that many times through the years, and, of course, it doesn't happen. The Chinese figure out a way. Somehow the banks continue on. And those who saw financial Armageddon have been wrong. But here we are again with an enormous property company that has enormous amounts of debts that basically is trying to actually make good on debts by giving people and or vendors, empty apartments that aren't even finished.
Yeah, you're allowed to get
that's kind of where they are
parking
now.
Spots. Carl, one thing I want to point out is we sit here and we talk about how the United States is not allowed into China. We're not allowed to make loans in China. We're not allowed to be part of China. Oh, but when China goes bad, suddenly we're involved with China? I am sorry. Look, we know we have to deal with 3 or 4 days of people who don't know what they're talking about coming on and talking about contagion. All I can tell you is we wish we had contagion. We're not allowed in. Our banks are the safest banks in the world because we have just been told by China forever, good luck, you're not coming in. So I can sit here and watch all our banks go down, Carl. But you know what? I am going to say this is the silver lining, the playbook silver lining, although the Eagles look terrible, of what I regard as being, it's the other side of, hey, you're not allowed in. They need us so badly, but we're not going to play because there's no reason to.
Yeah. I hear you talking about the relative safety of U.S. versus China, Jim, but how do you fold in the Evergrande concerns with general stagflationary concerns, what this does to the Fed meeting this week, obviously the dance that we're witnessing between Manchin and the White House and the House?
Look, all of that is negative, but so is the debt ceiling. I mean, we actually have, when you have people like Janet Yellen saying this could be catastrophic, you start thinking about the S&P being downgraded. That caused a 19% sell-off 10 years ago. I look at this moment as being faux perilous. I say faux because everything could be contained by David's going to hate this, responsible politicians. If you think that they're responsible politicians, and we don't necessarily need a multi-trillion-dollar bill to hire people since we can't find anybody to work anyway, then you know what? We have to suffer through this period, David, where we can't get anybody to work. Hopefully that they don't create even more jobs that we can't find anybody to work. And then we deal with it. But we have to go through it first.
Jim, it feels like we've had more showdowns over the debt limit than even worries about the property market in China.
80 in the last couple decades.
But at the same time, if it actually were not to happen, it would be, do you not believe, a significant moment that would potentially be a very bad one for the financial market?
Yes, and that could cause a bottom. I hate to say what could cause a bottom, but since I've been negative for so long, I'm not looking for a rally. I'm staying negative, and then we'll see. There'll be cues. I mean, Carl, look, we come in this morning, and suddenly this thing that has been this looming crisis all over the globe, with the exception of the United States, because we're much more hostage to whether the Fed's going to raise rates. And suddenly people are like frantically discussing, What is this Evergrande? What do they do? Oh, they own 1.5 million apartments. Oh, the apartments are empty. They've asked the employees to pay. I mean, this thing's been going on forever, but it hasn't been part of our lexicon because we're so busy talking about how the Chinese are saying to us, stay out of our markets. So, look, I think that this isn't as negative as the idea of the debt ceiling. Once again, Senator Manchin this weekend, but now some other moderates are saying, you know what, maybe we shouldn't have a big infrastructure. And that's causing some of our infrastructure stocks to trade down. But look, the narrative is negative. Maybe we have to be saved by earnings. But this is a moment, a 20-day period that started last Wednesday, that is historically the worst period for 20 years. So we should not suddenly wake up and say, you know what? It is time to buy AMC Entertainment. Right?
Right.
That's what you want. You want how much debt? They've got a kind of a Evergrande-like debt.
Well, they got a lot of debt.
Yeah. They have a lot of debt.
Yeah, they have a lot of debt.
But the movie slate.
Yeah, movie slate.
And the people who are involved. Now, Carl, this is going to be an interesting moment because we've got these people who are, they call themselves apes. And where is Jane Goodall? Was that what we need or we need?
Jane Goodall's a great lady,
Where's Jane Goodall? Is she going to bail out these people? Carl, is this her moment?
I don't know what Jane thinks of silverbacks. I know she's done gorillas, Jim, but we'll obviously pay attention to, as you said, earnings, which, by the way, the calendar this week, we'll get Adobe and FDX and General Mills and Nike and Costco, but we'll have to see how that competes with the other narratives that are sort of getting in the way. We're going to talk about the Pfizer news after the break, Jim, but that is one bit of good news that would allow you to look forward, say, a month or two, if there's the possibility that you have millions of young kids getting vaccinated by Halloween?
Oh, I think totally. That is a great point. By the way, there was a really odd vote on Friday. Initially, Pfizer wanted everybody to get the vaccine and presented no data. But then suddenly they presented some data for people who are older than, in the 60s, and it went fine. But in the end, let's say we get vaccinated, all right? Let's say we're now like the 40th most vaccinated in the world. That's kind of negative. Yes. But let's say we get vaccinated, David. Then what happens is we start having more people come to the workforce.
We do. Well, also, though, 5 to 11-year-olds being able to get vaccinated, one of the key reasons many people, I think, cite for not going to the office is not concerned for their own health, but for their children if they do have them. And so a lot of employers who are somewhat frustrated by the inability to get their workforce back and have pushed back these return dates now to what is January, a lot of at least the concern they've heard as well. I'm not real worried, but I'm worried about my kids. By the way, we should point out, guys, this has nothing to do with our seating arrangement today. Has nothing to do with virus protocol at all.
Are you certain?
Yes, we have a lighting issue on our main set.
How many vaccinations do you have?
7. I've had 7.
Okay,
yes.
That's fine then. I feel much more confident.
Yep.
Carl, there's a Chinese auto company that I thought was a very big company. They produced 25,000 cars. They're going to be producing 23. Why? Because of COVID and because of chip shortages. Now, these are the things, maybe we can kind of knock out COVID, but the chip shortage thing, it is still with us. And we can't seem to get these chips, Carl, that are what we call full feature, which is the ones that are $2 to $3, going. But you know what? All these things that I'm talking about, shouldn't they mean that General Mills, which has already said good things, that does well? There was an upgrade today about Colgate. I'm starting to think that what happens is, like, by day 4, people are going to be looking at it and say, you know what? Maybe we buy some Pfizer here. That is not today. It's not today, but it's coming.
That's interesting. By the way, the trial, about 2,300 kids ages 5 to 11. A safe and robust response, Pfizer said. They're going to submit for an EUA as soon as possible, according to our Meg Terrell. Here's what board member Scott Gottlieb said on Squawk earlier this morning.
Pfizer could be in a position to file very quickly. The data came a little earlier than some were expecting. And depending on how long the FDA takes to review the application, whether it's a 4-week review or a 6-week review, you could have a vaccine available to children as early as probably by the end of October. Perhaps it slips a little bit into November.
It's 2 doses of the same vaccine, but a smaller dose, 3 weeks apart, Jim. They did add that they did see fewer side effects than, for example, teens have gotten in their vaccine, sore arms, that kind of thing.
Well, look, I think this is one of the things where we get very excited about it. People in the Northeast, I think, will go for it. And then, David, people in the South, I mean, remember, we have a sizable, also Midwest, sizable people who just don't think that this works. Well, they've got a million reasons not to give it to their kids. I mean, can we accept the fact that we now have a situation in this country? Dr. Topol talked to me about it on Mad Money, where it's basically half the country thinks this thing's doesn't work.
It's not half. It's not half.
Well, what are the numbers?
The numbers would indicate 25%.
Okay, but how many? We got a lot of people in the country.
Oh, that's an enormous amount of people.
Then you take the people who've had shot one.
80 million people. Yeah.
And we don't know if they're going to get shot two.
Right.
And I just say that what's holding us back are people who, for religious reasons, I really don't know what the religious reason is, but that's not in the Old or New Testament. It's a little study on that. But more importantly, David, there are people who think that this is a Democrat vaccine.
Right.
Not a Republican vaccine, a Democrat vaccine.
We have talked a great deal about vaccine resistance, and it will continue, and it's unclear exactly how much progress you're going to be able to make with the children of people who don't want to get vaccinated.
Right. I don't want it, but my kids, fine with my kids.
This weekend about something you've been talking about, people who are happy to take the Regeneron drug.
Oh, you mean once they're deathly sick? Yeah, that's working well.
Earlier, but not actually get vaccinated. Still, Jim, if this can get done, it will potentially help at least deal with the back to work situation.
Which, yes.
Again, where I do hear, and I'm sure you do, from a lot of frustrated employers who had anticipated bringing their workforces back in full, at least 3 days a week, let's call it, by the middle of next month, and now have pushed those openings back to January, even though many of those same employees, by the way, are fully engaging in life otherwise, which raises the question as to exactly how many people want to come back to the office.
Well, it is very hard. I mean, Carl, this is a very, very rich person problem. But if you go out to dinner, Carl, you just have to presume that there's going to be one server handling 20 tables, one bartender, because those people, they cannot find people to work there.
Yeah. Labor's a problem, although I got to say, guys, Broadway this weekend, packed house at, say, American Utopia, where I was, vax required, everyone masked up. But it does appear, I mean, anecdotally, like you're finding venues who handle large numbers of people discovering ways to do this kind of thing safely, David. And to your point about work, maybe there are lessons to learn there. Yeah,
I mean, I think there are a number of employers who would prefer have just kept the mid-October date, from what I hear, and some have, in terms of an expectation, Carl, that people come back. And I mention that because, of course, that does create a lot more economic activity as well, or at least some more. Right. Certainly for your central business districts around the country and the small businesses that rely on them. But you're right. People are going about their business. And Jim, people who are unvaccinated are as well. And unfortunately, we still have, 2,000 people a day dying in the country?
I was with 70,000 people yesterday at the Eagles.
Yeah.
I had a mask initially. I felt pressure not to wear one because nobody else had one.
Right.
Now, are we going to see an outbreak, not unlike what we saw in 1918 with World War I bonds, where Philadelphia had the worst, most egregious?
I don't know. I mean, there was a time when outdoor you felt very safe, but Delta is so contagious, as you know, that it's not quite the same as it was early on in the onset of the virus in terms of its ability to be transmitted even outdoors.
But I used to say, Carl, what does this have to do with the price earnings multiple of Bristol Myers?
When you're next to somebody for a long time, by the way. You're not getting it walking by somebody on the street. We know that.
Well, I mean, I'm next to someone without a mask, but it's outside, so suddenly I feel okay. I don't know. I mean, Carl, the one thing I would point out is that you want to look at tech. I am not hearing people saying you've got to sell Microsoft, which has the best balance sheet maybe in the world, because of Evergrande.
Right.
But there'll be people on air who will say this is the beginning of the big rollover. I come back the other way and say this is the end of the big rollover because the People's Republic of China, if they wanted to bail this thing out after a lot of pain, they will. Yeah. I mean, they have no desire to have a recession in China.
About a quarter basis point backup in rates for high yield, guys. That's all I'm hearing this morning.
And it's the best year ever.
Yeah. So that's what the impact has been so far.
I like you kind of further away from me.
You do?
Yeah. Because I was next to 70,000 people very close. I feel much safer now.
You do? Oh, really? Yeah. Next to me? I should be the one who's concerned.
Well, maybe. I don't know those people at 70,000 as well as I know you.
I mean, he may be up to his 5th shot by now. Who knows, Carl? Every week he keeps growing.
I feel better about that.
Guys, we will continue this conversation. I'll take stock of Evergrande. We'll check in with Eunice Yoon in Beijing. Take a look at the markets. Bitcoin, Ether down 10%. Oil down for a second day. Yields are down for the first time in 4. And Squawk on the Street's back in a moment.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.